Well, I'm sure that anybody listening to this podcast would want to know, okay, we know what they do, we know who they are, we know what services they provide, but why Malta? So perhaps, Marc, I could come back to you. Why Malta? Do we even have the expertise to deal with this kind of thing? Do we have the legislation that's required?
Yeah, I think there are a number of factors which make Malta a suitable jurisdiction for the family office. One can start with the legal and regulatory framework, which is recognised to be a sound framework, harmonised with the EU. We have a competitive tax regime, and all that in the spirit of Malta's obligations in terms of exchange of information and prevention of money laundering obligations.
Which doesn't actually tie in with confidentiality, surely. Is there
there is
between the two?
I wouldn't say there may be conflict, but there is a point of reconciliation, which is wanting to be discreet within the clear parameters of the law. And certainly the confidentiality regulations in Malta, as well as Malta's obligations to exchange information and to prevent money laundering, do have a point of reconciliation where the two subsist, if you like, in harmony. In addition to that, you also have a very proactive and amenable regulator who, whilst vigorously enforcing that regulation, is also open and amenable. We very often find from clients that they tell us the time to market when coming to Malta, because of the amenability of the regulator, is so much shorter than if you go maybe to larger jurisdictions. There is a very strong professional support network around these family offices to provide all the support, be it professional, be it technical, IT infrastructure and the like, as well as a good human capital. The Maltese workforce is recognised as being highly qualified, extremely competent. The fact that English is spoken, is an official language, is the business language of choice, really gives Malta a very strong competitive advantage in that field. We also have a diverse choice of investment vehicles, starting from a standard Maltese company, going on to maybe investment vehicles, professional investor funds, trust relationships for wealth management, and more recently even the concept of a foundation, which is maybe more in tune with the understanding of continental Europeans.
Bryony, do you agree with what Marc is saying? I mean, are there any things that you would perhaps give more weighting to than Marc has given us sort of a general roundup?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I certainly agree with the products that are on offer here in Malta. They're very, very attractive, especially having that EU presence, whether a client or family is in the EU or is looking for inward investment into the EU. Just on the regulator, you know, from my experience coming to Malta and going through a licence application, they're extremely very well, it's a very well set up organisation, a great relationship that you can have with the regulator, and we've been very, very impressed.
And what about the human capital? Are you able to recruit the people that you require when you do need to bring in external expertise? Do you have problems with bringing them in here, permits, anything like this?
No, we haven't. I mean, I've sort of, having moved here myself, certainly no. We haven't experienced any problems, and here in Malta, everybody's been incredibly helpful. And also recruitment-wise, you know, there's a great talent pool here. I think one of the things that's really impressed me is if there is a skills gap, the Maltese have been looking at how they can encourage students at the universities or within schools to encourage the future employees, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
Stefan, you've presumably had the same experience. You've been here for a few years. If you don't mind my saying, you also came here with a family as well. So did you find it easy to move here? And
exceptionally, and we previously, before we came to Malta, we were based offshore, and we found that from a business perspective it was becoming increasingly cumbersome, very long timelines to get anything done, very expensive. As we came to Malta, we found that we were in the EU, we were onshore, it's a whitelisted jurisdiction. And on top of that, I could take my whole family through the European directives straight across to Malta schools. I could work here without any immigration issues at all, so that made it very much an easy ride.
UK, Sweden, not in the Eurozone. Is this a good thing or a bad thing at the moment? To be in Malta?
To be in Malta is good from an investment perspective, but to be honest, most of our deals are done in US dollars, Swiss francs. There's some euro deals and so on, but it's not a primary concern.
I would have thought that was actually an argument for not being based in a country in the euro.
I think that's probably a different topic, but if you're in Germany, you're still in the euro, that's got some benefits. If you're in Greece, you're in the euro, so that's got dangers and some benefits. From a family office perspective, and I'm sure Bryony would agree, which currency you report in is quite a low order priority.
One of the recent developments in Malta is now quite advanced with regards to the single European payment area. Is that going to be a useful tool for you as well?
Yeah, in terms of currency transfers, that helps, and it makes it quicker and it makes it more cost efficient, so it's a benefit.
Right, this is all the stuff that we're doing well. There must be things that you would like to see more of, or to see us improve perhaps in terms of delivery times and so on. Marc, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, it's a constant learning process. As the island becomes more sophisticated, as clients' demands become more sophisticated, we have to learn how to grow. So I think it's more a matter of not remaining static and always trying to anticipate what family offices would require going forward and trying to meet their expectations going forward. The moment we remain static and the moment we think we have achieved enough will be the moment where we start regressing. So I think it's important that there is synergy between the family offices, the support network, the government and government agencies to make sure there's a constant communication of each other's expectations and requirements so that the flawless interchange between the various players that drive this industry remains in place.
Bryony, do you agree?
Yeah, Malta, from what I've found, it reflects very well, and if there are any issues that it needs to move quickly on, it does, and certainly the regulator is always reviewing new EU legislation and implementing quickly. If there is an issue, it's dealt with very quickly, and I totally agree. If they stop that progression, that would yeah,
we could soon become outdated.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure that there are lots of other jurisdictions which there's an awful lot of rivalry for this sort of business, and everybody else is looking to see what Malta's doing, and they've got their own game plan, which we have to keep one step ahead of.
Yeah, the business community itself works really well together in promoting Malta. I think that's kind of a first priority for us, is to promote Malta, and then when we've got them here, then it's, it's a free-for-all. No.
It's really nice to hear you guys say this, but I read when I was doing the research before this, Stefan, you were speaking in Stockholm about Malta, and the comment was actually made that, the Maltese can go there and blow their own trumpets, but when it comes from a foreigner who's actually made the move and is living the move, then obviously it carries a lot more weight. So come on, persuade the audience out there.
Well, I would say that particularly on Bryony's point, that the top level financial services effort that Malta has made has been excellent. The MFSA, the Registry of Companies, the International Taxation Unit is probably the best I've come across, because it's well regulated, it's tightly controlled, and it's a small manageable country, which means that I can get a decision or I can get something explained to me directly without having to pay a lawyer to go in between by someone who works at the relevant department. And that area I think they've done really well. I think there is a rich professional services supply, but I think also I sort of understood this between the lines from Marc's perspective, that it's not enough to be here. The professional services firms need to understand that the people who come here and ask for that type of service have experience from other jurisdictions to compare to. At a certain price level, you expect a certain efficiency and a certain quality. And I think that needs to stay the focus of the whole professional services sector. But from moving the family office to Malta and running the investment platform from here, I think it's easy, it's very pleasant, and the top level legislation is world class.
Well, you know, I really don't think there's anything I can add to any of this. So I think on that wonderful high note, we'll end this podcast. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for listening.